All right. Let's see what's going on here. All right. Go see what we might see here. Let me pull myself up here. There's Enzo Bear. How's it going? Oh, you know what I didn't pull up yet? Hold on a second here. Let's do a presentation real quick just so we could have something in the background. There we go. I just want something in the background. All right. Let me pull all my stuff back up front. There's our little data search. That and whoops, not that. Our Linux. All right. There we go. You guys should be able to see me. You guys should be able to see what's going on. I've not streamed all weekend. It was a long weekend, but we're gonna do a little bit of Linux, and we'll just focus on kind of some job stuff. I know people keep telling me they're looking for work or they're trying to find stuff. They're trying to find work out there, and there's no entry level stuff, and that's maybe kind of true. I mean, you just got to keep hammering away. What's for sure not going to help is not doing anything, right? You're not going to, if you don't have the job now and you don't do anything, you're probably not going to have the job in the future either. So I know that kind of probably sounds like a little simplistic, but it's true. You got to do something, right? So let's, what I did was I went on DICE and I did Linux administration. So Linux and administration. Phoenix, Arizona is where I'm at, but I think my filter results are pretty wide for, we're just going to look at what the different job skills are that they want. What are they looking for? Hopefully we'll get all this crap out of the way. What do they want people to do? So this is interesting. They want, let's say networking. They want some networking, and then they want you to understand server, storage, and application. Maybe we'll leave those together for now. They want you to have that. They want you to have advanced level knowledge in one or more, in more than one of the following areas. So that seems a bit much to me, but PowerShell, shell scripting, Ansible, Python, I think those are pretty reasonable for a lot of you administrators, people that are trying to start out. And you might say, yeah, even PowerShell? Yeah, surprisingly, even PowerShell. And the PowerShell I've done was remarkably close to like JavaScript that I've used, and Perl. I always thought JavaScript and Perl were very similar. There's probably some nuance differences that I don't really dig into or care about, but PowerShell's pretty good to know still, even if you're on the Linux side of things. There are some organizations that still use PowerShell because there's plugins that'll let that run. There's all kinds of interaction between like Bash Shell and PowerShell nowadays. So I don't do that kind of stuff. That's not really any of the gigs that I'm in, but that is a thing to know, right? So without even talking being a programmer, I would say all of these are scripting level, tools that I think scripting, right? And those are these, and then these are more programming. These other ones, which are like Go, Rust, and then Git's actually its own little thing. So let's say programming, and then I would say Git is your software versioning, and I would also call this your getting along with others. How much are you willing to put your stuff out there within an organization and not just like work in your own little pocket? So Git is huge, right? Look, they want you to know how to do Linux or AIX or Windows. I've actually done all of those in my career, but AIX is probably a lot less common, probably just something within that organization. I would still call that, I would call that server side stuff for me though, but they want you to have, look, expert level knowledge. This is wild. Kubernetes. They want you to do virtual server management, SAN, which is storage area networking, right? They want you to know cloud. Like, so this company wants you to know a lot. I'm curious what they're offering here. This is also a 6-month plus, so this is probably up to 50. Yeah, it's contract W2. So this is a contract position, right? This is one of those ones. All those things they want, and they're only going to pay you 50 an hour. And that's only a little, right about 100 a year. That's, I mean, you know, advanced Kubernetes, you're not rolling out of the bed for that. SAN and cloud, I don't think most people are rolling out of the bed for that either. They want security. Oh wow, they want so much here. But let's just look at that and take that under advisement. That's an interesting place to start for our first one. So we'll come back here. And the next one is a top secret cleared cyber infrastructure engineer. So you got to have a top secret to even be doing this, offering free lunch on Wednesdays. Let's see what they're looking for, right? For their IT type person. Consult with client on design, architecture, and implementation of cyber solutions. So I often wonder nowadays when people say cyber, are they talking generically IT or are they talking about security? Because those aren't interchangeable terms, but people tend to make them interchangeable for some reason. They want you to engineer stuff and tune infrastructure, so all these same things, right? Networks, routers, switches, firewalls, ideas. They want you, yeah, infrastructure engineer. They want you like a jack of all trades on this one. If supporting training, task, automate range scenario, deployment, leveraging infrastructure, virtualization, custom scripting, development, etc. So they want you to build out, looks like, training environments. NeoGeo, that's an interesting question. I have never been bitten by a scorpion. I've also never been stung by a scorpion. But that being said, when I was a kid, I killed many scorpions when I was a kid. I messed with way more scorpions than I probably should have to not have been stung by one or bitten by one. But I normally think of it as stinging as the. I wouldn't care. I think if one bit me. We used to also mess with the scorpions a lot in Iraq too. We would catch them and make them fight the ants and make them fight the big old. If you guys have ever seen the camel spiders and those kind of things, so. Killa, you just learned some new subnetting tricks. Nice. Anything good? Anything useful? It sounds like if it's good, it should be useful. Maintain and continuously improve infrastructure. Research and analyze available technologies for integration. So they want you to new technology on top of these other things. I was going to put like a check mark by each of these as each one kept mentioning them, but I think everybody's going to do those. We're not going to deal with the government stuff nearly as much. But now, I had seen down here just a bunch of software stuff from Canonical. There's a lot of Canonical stuff. Python, K8s. We're not going to go into all those because those aren't strictly speaking Linux engineering. There's some cloud engineering stuff which might be kind of interesting, but not really germane to this discussion, right? Not really involved with what we're talking about here. We want to look at Linux, right? We looked for Linux administration, and we got all this other stuff because it mentioned Linux in there. Software engineer, software engineer, software engineer, software, don't care. OpenShift platform. So my younger brother John does. Software, OpenStack. Yeah, it's probably got some Linux involved. We're looking for more Linux stuff. Database engineer. Let's look for this sysadmin. What do they want from this sysadmin here? 81 or 80 to 120. That's not a bad start for sysadmin, but maybe they're. Let's see what they want for a sysadmin. What do they want you to do if you're running their systems? Nothing. Job description here. Must be willing to travel a little bit, need a top secret clearance. So you need a top secret secure compartmentalized information, SCI. I hold one of the, well, I don't hold one of those anymore, but I've had one of those. They want you to install, configure, and maintain Windows servers, but not limited. See, this is just systems admin. So this is just generic, right? This is just generally everything. Install, configure, and maintain Linux server. I almost think this is a little too generalized because you're going to get somebody that, isn't great at both of these, but I don't know. Administration management of CyberArk accounts, safes, and licenses. I think CyberArk is like its own interesting little beast. If somebody's already set it up, maintaining it's just going to be like making sure that it's tied in with, doing the stuff it should. I wouldn't want to be the guy on the back end maintaining that. I feel like your identity and access management team should be doing that. But I guess if it falls on you, it's one more tool you're going to learn. It's just going to be one more tool in the back that I wouldn't spend a lot of time trying to get great at. James, yeah, we're just hanging out. Cambry, we're just kind of working on, so I run a group called the Professional Linux Users Group, and we are looking at jobs right now for, people always want to talk about system stuff, and we do all these different labs around here, and we do all this other stuff, but also the goal is to get people into these jobs. So I'm kind of pulling out some of the job things that they're asking for from these different jobs that we're finding, and then we're going to go through them in a Linux context. That's typically what we do. But again, this looks like it's kind of slim pickings as far as some of this goes, because it's not really security protocols in accordance with DoD standards. These are a thing to know how to do. So I'm going to put that under security, right? And it's maintain, right? So you're maintaining. Yeah, so we're just gathering some information out right now. So if that's what you're asking about, that's what we're doing right now. Just pulling some information up. Yeah, that should be good. I don't think that's too far behind me. Okay. Patching, right? Oh, they always want you to do patching. Now, patching's interesting because patching falls under security, and it also falls under maintenance. So it's kind of, patching is kind of both. So we'll call it security for here, though. Patching and to collaborate with teams. So they want you to be able to work with people. Documentation, right? Documentation's huge. I think documentation. Documentation's just the thing that you need to be good at within a team. They want you to stay up on the latest technologies and best practices in systems admin. So that's kind of this new technology deployment stuff. And then submission of change requests. So they want you to follow change management procedures, which is also, I think, pretty important. Kill, I don't know if you've been around. I sometimes show people how subnetting works, but it's limited interest. Not everybody's super interested in it. So that's, but I show that kind of stuff sometimes. So anyway, so sysadmin stuff, and then they have some qualifications. We know how these all work. Should be 8170, not 8140. I thought it was 80. Yeah, it's 8170. But all right, so let's go. Let's keep looking. Software engineer. We're not looking for being software engineers here. Not directly. Linux admin with L3 support. Let's see what these guys are asking for. So they want you to have 12 years of Linux admin experience. So, well, the only way to get good at Linux is to start doing Linux. If you're not doing Linux, we got to get you in there. Best ways I know to get started are, well, I mean, if you can build a system, that's the way we used to always start everybody is, we'd throw you a disk and tell you to install it. But what I try to tell you guys is nowadays it doesn't have to be that difficult anymore. You can just go to Killer Coda. Killer Coda is like one of the best sites on the web for just getting you dropped right into a shell. Every IT professional I know says learn. I'm always trying to teach people networking easy money, but they don't. I don't know. It's like mixed review. Like if I'm showing people on here, I don't feel like people are super interested. So A lot of times I don't stick like deep into it, but I do show subnetting. I actually have some videos on subnetting and stuff. They want you to have some hands-on with AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. So whenever I see this, it's interesting because this to me, I don't want to say this shows a lack of maturity. I think you can put this on a resume saying, hey, I know these technologies, but a business isn't going to be running all three of these. That's super sus or super weird to me. The team you're on is either doing AWS or they're doing Azure or they're doing Google Cloud. And if they tell you, oh, well, we do more than one of them, they're probably a pretty big team. I mean, I've been on some pretty good sized teams and I've never done all three. So we might be dabbling in one or two and then doing some production workloads on like AWS. But then these other ones are just us kind of, spending a little bit and going and playing with it. It's just interesting to me. So they do want you to have the Kubernetes, right? So they want you to understand Kubernetes, Docker, and automation. Strong troubleshooting and problems. Dude, guys, everybody wants you to troubleshoot. Everybody wants you to know how to troubleshoot things. That's really, at the end of the day, what they're hiring you for. You got to know a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff, and then you got to be able to troubleshoot broken things. And we've talked about that before. So knowledge of security, compliance, and Linux hardening. So they're back on this Linux hardening. How do we harden a server? How do we make a server do the things we want it to do, but not do these other things, right? And then excellent communication and teamwork skills. How do we communicate? Not typically a lot of this. Like me talking and stuff, that's less common than me just sending messages in Slack and doing documentation and stuff. So, yeah, Camby, I could see this being called DevOps. Yeah, because guys, the way I look at DevOps, I've always been a platform and a systems engineer, right? Like I build the systems, and then I've got all these development teams. And the place that we kind of meet in the middle is how I look at DevOps. Like when they're trying to like get you doing some software stuff and some platform stuff, and maybe you're deploying your own stuff in the cloud and that kind of stuff. That's kind of how I think of DevOps, is the melding of these two teams. But I do try to stay, I don't want to say I'm a purist, but I try to stay down on the Linux side of things as much as I can. I do networking. I do security heavily, right? Some of you guys that have been around know that I do so much security. So much more than I want to do. Tigreal, how's it going? I'm just kind of hanging out, talking through some of these things. Look at these responsibilities. Install, configure, and maintain RHEL, CentOS, Ubuntu, SUSE, right? Those are going to be your main flavors of servers. So that's still pretty wide. I mean, maybe a company is running, they're not running on CentOS anymore, but they may still be doing some demo stuff on it. RHEL, Ubuntu, and SUSE. I could almost bet you that whoever posted this, it looks like it was updated 3 days ago. Some manager just pulled some old one out from years ago and sent it over to his HR team to get people in, for interviews. But CentOS hasn't been supported in the enterprise for five years now, maybe 4, almost 5 now. Yeah. So it's been a long time since CentOS was supported. So you're not going to be running that on any big systems. You might still be demoing and playing with it, but you're not using that in production systems. I couldn't imagine. You might have a few years back, but not now. Not now at all. So monitor system performance and troubleshoot issues. So you got to build up your monitoring or maintain their monitoring that's there. We're constantly going over our monitoring in the home lab here. How's Ranger doing? Ranger is not on his bed. Where is our Prolog? How are our systems doing? Oh, assuming my servers are up, right? There's Ranger. Oh, Ranger. You tired old dog. Ranger's super old, guys. All right. Servers, how are our servers doing, right? And I can quick view and see what's going on. Our security in our environment. How's our security looking? It's acceptable. Oh, that's kind of, that's Cox for you. Got some high ping numbers throughout the day. Probably some BS going on. Why are we getting higher numbers averaged over the last? Oh, that's weird. I'm going to have to look into that, right? That's been going on for a month now. Actually, as of today, a month and 2 days. All right. Anyways, and then logs, right? We got logs. We like to look at logs because we like to know these are all the people that have tried to get into the server in the last 6 hours, right? Into my open server that's out there on the web, right? Ranger, yeah, Ranger's king. Look at him. He's king over here. He's on his bed on a bed. We also have the back door open. It's very nice in Phoenix right now. It's about 70. I think it's about 70 out right now, and the sun's going down back there. So, okay. Anyways, let's go keep looking. So that was a job. It wasn't necessarily a great one, but it gave us some more things to look at. Windows admin. We don't really want to be Windows admins, but look real quick. Don't Windows admins want in the Windows space some pretty similar stuff? Look, they want you to use some tools. So you need to be able to do system and user management, install, configure, and maintain the OS, manage user accounts, security and monitoring, implement your security, right? Firewalls, security patches, vulnerability management. They want you to use Splunk as a very specific tool. We use Promtail around here to send logs up to Loki. They want you to do performance and troubleshooting, monitor system performance. I mean, look, it's all these same things. So networking, let's say system performance. They want you, troubleshooting. And did I ever write troubleshooting down? I did not. These are skills that they want you to have for all this stuff. Diagnose and resolve hardware, software, and network issues, right? These are some of the big things that it's going to come onto. No, so in my home lab here, there's a few logs that are being sent. Secure and messages are the two inside of my, well, that's a CentOS box still. So Red Hat type systems, varlog secure, varlog messages. Varlog messages are all your system level messages. Varlog secure is all of your alerts and security stuff. Now, hold on. Now on the Ubuntu side, if you're doing the labs and stuff up in Killer Coda, it's varlog syslog for your messages and varlog authlog. So, like in my home lab here, we're up here. Jump back over to Jump01, op Promtail. And here's our configs, our scrape configs for the systems are varlog messages and varlog secure. But if you do it, yeah. So I'm mostly RHEL and Rocky in the home lab. Up in the Killer Coda labs, if you guys do the Killer Coda labs, because we're limited by Ubuntu, right? I mean, it's free and it's online, but it's Ubuntu, so it's a trade-off. I tell you guys, if you have no Linux experience at all, it's a pretty good thing to go here. Watch this. This Killer Coda, free site, doesn't cost you any money. You can go in and let's say you were like, hey, I'll go play with this guy Scott Champine's Ansible Labs. That's me, right? And then you can come in here and this is what it does. It drops you directly into a shell and you just start doing Ansible on a command line right here. But again, the trade-off for this is it's not a Red Hat system. They don't have Red Hat. Trust me, I would build all my labs in the Red Hat systems if they had them. It's Ubuntu 2004. But the point is, I tell you guys all the time, if you're doing zero Linux, this is at least Linux right here. This is where I would start, like doing something. Not everybody's got a home lab. Not everybody's got the infrastructure and the other things to do that. Now, if you join the Professional Linux Users Group and you hang out for a little bit in there, you'll find that I have, I think I'm up to 40-something. I'm up to 44 servers now that you could use in the Professional Linux Users Group that you can access and get into, and that kind of stuff. Some of you guys weren't around the other day when I actually expanded them out to 25 more in the Hammer range. So now we have all this other stuff. If you want to know what that looks like, it kind of looks like this. Hold on. I'll blow this up for everybody that hasn't seen it before. We got a tool we use around here a lot called Excalidraw. And Excalidraw has the environment that we've kind of built out around here, and this shows how to get into my home lab. This shows like the virtualized hosts, and then people were drawing stuff up here the other day, but then we built out Hammer 1 through 25 in the same environment, all under the same werewolf. So now we have these are 1 through 19 Rocky, and then 1 through 25 more of Hammer block, on one of my other XCPNG boxes, right? So that's a tool that does virtualization for us, right? Like we have all this virtualization here, and here's all our Hammer boxes, and then here's all our Rocky boxes, and you can get in those via SSH if you know how. Just got to go join the Discord and go hang out down there if you want to do that stuff. Okay, where was I at? Oh yeah, doing Linux stuff. So we've been finding all these things that people want us to know. These are job skills. Also, all these other notes up here, like I've got all these other notes that we were doing. These are all things that I put up in the Discord the other day. They're just jobs that people have interviewed for and just questions that people have been asked. I want to say it's, it was about 1,000, almost 1,200 lines of just stuff to go study or read about in those different areas. I remember, at the beginning it was like, how do you install, configure, and maintain Linux in Red Hat, CentOS, or Ubuntu? And these were the things that I would tell you to go start to look at and understand, right? All right, anyway, so now we're here at the bottom, and we're just kind of adding to and thinking about these different skills that everybody's asking, right? And then we're going to look at how we, presumably would go find out about these skills, because like I tell you guys all the time, like this is a really good quote. It came from Sending Grounds when he took his dog to he had to take his dog to like a 1 month boarding school because of it's like a discipline thing, and his dog, the owners, the trainers, when the owners came and got their dogs, said, "Hey, remember, if nothing changes, nothing changes." And I kind of like that quote because it's true. Like, if you're not doing Linux now, right? If you're not doing Linux professionally now, and you don't do anything, you're probably not going to be doing Linux in the future. Now, if you're not doing Linux professionally now, but you play with it a lot, and then you want to maybe tune up some of these skills and figure out how to get them into a resume, well, then you could probably go ahead and drop them in over for, and get that stuff up there. For Windows, it's probably Splunk or Sentinel, it seems. Yeah, that sounds right. All right, so what were we doing? Oh, we were looking at job stuff and then networking and all that stuff. We've talked about this before. Here's another Linux sysadmin. We'll go look at these and see if there's any other ones that we can pull out of here, and then we'll go start looking through some of these, right? So read the full job description. What do they want you to do? Install, configure. Yeah, you got to be able to install, configure, that kind of stuff. Troubleshoot and resolve. Okay, we got that. Configuration management tools like Puppet, Ansible, Terraform, or Chef. Again, that's one of these ones. This is some generic thing that some manager passed over to HR and nobody ever looked it over, because I assure you nobody's using all four of those. Chef and Puppet have been going out for a while. You might be using Ansible and Terraform for different reasons. Most of us use Ansible for configurations of live systems. I also use it for standing up systems. Terraform tends to be standing up of new systems, but not necessarily the maintenance of those systems or the personalization, I like to say, after. Although you can make it work for that, I guess. But VMware environments, so they're going to be using VMware, and then they want you to understand Bash and Python. Again, I tell you guys all the time, you got to use whichever one it is that your team uses. I think I told you guys in 2016, when I went to be the platform lead for AAA, nobody on that team used Perl. Me, and then there's this one other guy who had done Perl. We could have kept doing it, but it would have been just he and I that could support it. So that wasn't going to be very good. So what we did was we standardized that we do everything in Bash. And then around 2018, we said, okay, let's modernize the team and let's do everything in Ansible. And he and I both only did everything in Ansible after that, like as far as like deployment type stuff. And then the team kind of moved along and went on to Ansible as well. So, yeah, Hayes Anderson, I would agree in some ways that they're not the same, but they are all configuration. Terraform is more in your initial stand-up. And, if you want to know my background in it, I have their cert in it for Terraform. I do understand it quite well. I only use it for new deployment stuff. If I want to customize something that's there, especially physical boxes, I use Ansible. But there's that. Yeah, but that's what I was saying is this is like nobody would be using all of these. This would be like somebody telling you, they use 5 different stoves in a restaurant, and you'd be like, 5 different stoves? That doesn't make any sense. Most restaurants use one type and get really good at it. It's not, This is something that's just been tossed up there. All right. Anyway, so I would say, and then the pay range is about 120. So that's, you know, for sysadmin work, that's okay. Most engineers aren't going to roll out of the bed for that, but as a sysadmin, that's a good place. That's not a bad place to start if you're not in the industry. Actually, that's a pretty good place to start if you're not in the industry. I started lower than that when I first started out, but like you get in where you get in, right? And then cost of living changes and all that kind of stuff over the years as well. So, more sysadmin stuff. We'll look at more sysadmin. I imagine we're going to have all the same stuff in here. They want you to have a top secret. So we've seen a lot of top secret already, guys. So, they want you to know Red Hat, Linux, and Microsoft Windows. So they want you doing both things. That's why they say systems admin. They want you to know DNS, DHCP, Active Directory, server replication methods. They want you to use Azure. I do like when, again, they're not saying three different things. They're not just saying AWS, Azure, and Google. Like, why don't you throw Oracle and Alibaba in there, too, if you're going to say all those things. They want you to know what RAID is. That's important. Data backup technologies, install and configure software applications. Yeah. Okay, so these are all things that we kind of do as sysadmins. Okay. Work with cybersecurity. Maintain your security requirements. All right. And then 24/7. So you're going to have to take an on-call. On-call is pretty much the standard if you're going to be working in this space. Look, they want you to know DNS, DHCP, Active Directory, Windows Software Update Services, VMware, Net Backup, and then prior sysadmin and networking administration experience beyond account maintenance. So they want you more than just like a basic person that's done that stuff. Yeah, on-call is, we live in on-call, right? How's Ranger doing? My wife's got friends over for a book club tonight, so they probably won't walk over here, but there's Ranger. He's going to wander around. He won't be on his bed much because he's going to think that they have food for him. Yeah. Freaking Ranger. All right, he's smelling outside because it smells nice. It actually is real nice in Phoenix right now. All right. Yeah, the other logs that come in here, in case you guys are wondering, secure and messages. And then I have my guac and auth logs too. So guac logs are people coming in and trying to get into my guacamole server, which people can get in there if they know how to do it. It doesn't look like we had anything in the last 6 hours in there. And then secure is typically where we just look at failed. Yeah, look, somebody tried to get in as a root user, which isn't going to let you in. So, okay. So let's start looking at how we might do some of this stuff. And I might move this over here as well, because as we're looking at this, we might want to pull some stuff up. So, all right, so we start out with networking, right? And you guys have asked before, and we've talked about this before, but I'm going to pull something up in the Discord. I'm going to pull up the Discord here in a second, too, where, like, people have asked me, like, Scott, how much networking do I need to know as a systems administrator? And I'm torn on that because, I came from networking. I started networking I started studying networking 25 years ago. And I've been teaching it for 16 years at the college level, right? Networking. Networking and security and Linux and all that stuff. But computer science stuff, right? Where I'm going with that, though, is people always ask me, like, how much networking do I need to know really, realistically, to do this stuff? And there's a really good answer. I only found this. I knew about this, like, years ago, and I just never thought to tell you guys. So let's go up here to our networking stuff. And this is what I tell you guys right here. This is the bare minimum right here, this little red book. And I think I've said it before in chat here. Let me go look up here for it. I want to say it's like pages, I think I have it in here. As I say, you need to know. We'll go find it. We'll go find it. All right, so here's the link to this red book. This comes from IBM. And it's a little dated, guys. It's from like 2003, but it might surprise some of you guys to know that a lot of stuff hasn't changed that much. But it's archived. It's free from IBM. But I always tell you guys, you come in here, and here's the chapters, right? It shows you all the information. And what I've been telling you guys is you read from from page 3 through 170. So pages 3 through 170 of this book. That would be what I would tell you if you said, Scott, what's the minimum networking I need to know to be a sysadmin? And I would say page 3 to 170 of this book. Book I just linked to you guys, right? Because what does that cover, right? What does that talk about? That walks you through all the way that the standards work first. Then they talk about networking interfaces and everything in here. This is really low level. A lot of the stuff's old. Point to point, frame relay, point to point over SONET, and then asynchronous transfer mode. You might not run into a lot of these technologies. However, understanding how an Ethernet frame works is very important even till today. If I were to tell you something like, pull up, let's say you don't have a separate network engineer, and we now need to, go into maybe this this Kali capture to see what kind of traffic was happening in my systems. We could come in here and figure out, okay, here's some ICMP traffic, and here's what it looked like, and it was between this device and this device on the network. I mean, we can go find those with ARP or something like that. But I can figure out what's going on and how that's working, and a lot of the way that works gets demystified when you come in here and read through this book, right? Yeah, I think this book is an excellent primer for people to then be able to bridge the gap between, like, okay, well, in my Linux box, right? So in my little Linux box here, I can go back into my, oh shoot, I think I messed up the password. Hold on. Don't worry about the errors. Don't worry about any of that stuff. And then SH to like Rocky. Let's go try one of the new Hammer ones. All these new Hammer boxes we have up. And do I have? I don't have it. So DNF install ngrep. I think that's there. If not, I can find where it's at. Yeah. Okay. So let's install ngrep. Right. You can also use TCP dump for some of this stuff, but like ngrep will show you what's going on from the interfaces. Now, some of you very astutely are going to go, well, Scott, that's a big old hot mess. And I go, you're right, that is. Because by default, it's going, I want to say by default it's hex. But it does give us the direction of the traffic. So it shows us that we're connecting in, actually we're on 192.168.200.151, which is the Hammer block, the Hammer 1 server. Connected in on port 22, and we're talking back to this other machine on 53,022, right? So 53,022. That is the client port of SSH that is allowing that connection back. And then we could go track that down and figure out what's happening. But my point in that is I can come here and I could track this stuff. I can throw this down into a file, which tends to be the way we do it with like TCP dump. We TCP dump out to a PCAP file. We pull it back down, and then we open it on a local machine, or we send it over to our network engineers or whatever, and we look at it in TCP, or Wireshark, right? Wireshark is a great tool for us to go. I can get in here to like a TCP session here, and I can actually go and I can follow this TCP stream to see where it started, right? I can go see where it started. It was the very first packet, all the way down to here, where it ended. And then somebody might ask me, Scott, did this cleanly end? And I say, well, at the TCP level, we see that we had a sequence acknowledgement. So it was, this is actually a TCP stream, right? Is it's a SYN, a SYN-ACK, and an ACK between two. So it's a three-way handshake between two devices. They transmit all the data, and then they do a FIN and a FIN-ACK at the end to say we're all done. Well, the last one that we have here is still SSH happening, but without a FIN-ACK. So you say, well, Scott, was this transmission complete when the recording stopped? And I say, well, no, clearly not. It was still just a piece of transmission in between the start and the finish of the transmissions. You say, do all things always terminate cleanly? No, not always, but we would see possibly something other than this. But the point is, this was still communicating when the recording stopped, right? Like that kind of stuff. All right, so all these tools and all these things that are out there around networking, I would say, learn this. And then within networking, I would say learn your, your troubleshooting. And your troubleshooting tools are your TCP dump and your ngrep. Those are two really good troubleshooting tools for how things are talking and that kind of stuff, right? I would also learn my performance tools between these two. And your performance tools are going to be your iPerf 3, right? That's a tool for speed and that kind of stuff. And then I would want to know, for me, right, I would want to know, there's also SAR will give you some good information. I can do a SAR-n TCP, lowercase n. No, where is it? It's, it's capital N, but it's also capital TCP, right? Where is that? Oh, where is it? Breaking arrows definitely teach trouble. Absolutely true. Shouldn't be lowercase n, but we'll try it anyways. And TCP. Oh, you also use Arch. Well, I tell people all the time, use Arch as much as you want, but sometimes you're going to have to think about if you want to go into the professional world, you're going to have to probably start using one of the more mainstream ones. Let's just put it that way. Why is my SAR not working? I thought it was N. I don't even see N as one of my options here. Oh, maybe it is lowercase n. Yeah. All right. Oh, you know what? Whatever. We'll just do 1. So every 1 second we'll see TCP. I always forget. So if you don't give it a time frame, then it's going to do it based on the what is it called? It's going to do it based on the file, and that's going to be the every 10-minute file that's generated if you're running systat. But we want to see it actually happen in real time. So I show you guys this sometimes. Like we could be looking at SAR here, right? And then we could come down here to the bottom down here. We're just messing around down here. We could, what were we doing the other day? We were going like this. So we were, let's hop over to, so I've got, if you guys aren't familiar, I've got 2 different windows of screen open. And then on any one of them, I can jump between 3 different screens that I have active right now, right? So let's go from this one and let's SSH to our Llama box. So this is our Llama box that does AI stuff, right? And we're just gonna turn on over here his iPerf 3. So he's listening as a server on iPerf 3, right? We're gonna come over here and let's go back over here. This one was, oh, that's where Hammer 1's going. Yeah, Hammer 1's over here. So let's stay out of that one then. And we'll come back over here and here. We'll jump out. Don't worry about that. Exit out there. And we'll do a grep for llama from Etsy hosts. Oops. Right. So there's our llama box, 182. And on our, yeah, so that's there. We'll go SH to Hammer 1 here. And we're going to do iPerf 3. And we're going to connect over to that server, right? So up on the top one, when we do this connect, we're going to watch a lot of traffic flow. Look, big up of all the traffic that's flowing in our system now, right? And then this will finish down here, right? Hey, how's it going, Bottleneck? So now that finished, and then we should see up there that has finished. that bit of traffic between the systems, and we can go look at the speed of it. This is performance, but also we can go look at if there's any problems. So watch, if I go back over here, I can actually go over here and do this. I'm going to change that from TCP to eTCP. We'll look at both of them. So now we're looking at errors and good things that are happening. So now let's get back over here and let's rerun that. But up there, let's see if we get mostly good traffic, or do we have a bunch of error traffic happening? Let's look. Let's watch this happen. No, mostly good traffic. There's not a lot of error traffic happening, right? So could we generate bad traffic? Could we generate problematic traffic? Well, I know some of you guys have been around when I've shown this before, but let's say that we ping this traffic, right? Let's ping dash C1 that guy. So we see one, right? And then we maybe say for ping in, and then we'll backtick SEQ 1 to like 1,000, right? Do ping C1 and then done, right? So this is just gonna blow up and ping a whole bunch of times real quick. Oh, whoops. If you close out your sequence, you will. Anyway, so that's gonna ping really fast, and I can see that ping happening there, right? But watch this. It's about how fast my system will ping in comparison to how fast it is with traffic, and we can go compare that later if we wanted to, like mess around and stuff. But we don't want to mess around right now. Well, I mean, we can mess around, but look, this is networking stuff, right? We're learning about our system and doing stuff with the tools that we have, right? That's lowercase n. TCP, eTCP1, right? That'll show you. There's a bunch of other SAR things that you can do. But anyway, so we're pinging, right? No problems. Let's cause a problem. Let's say we also want to ping dash C1, and we're going to do that same address, right? But we're going to do something silly here. We're going to say the size of this frame, the size of the packet coming down, rather, ping deals at layer 3. The size of the packet coming down is going to be 1,500, right? So now we're going to do that, and that's going to work. But you're going to see that it's making more traffic than earlier. I mean, it's a little more than it was, right? So I'm going to hit Control-C. And now that bigger frame, or a packet that's coming down to go into layer 2, we're going to say, you know what? You are no longer allowed. We are going to set we are setting, so we do set the don't fragment bit. I know it's super weird, but that's what we're going to do. And now watch all the traffic that breaks. So now we're getting this error. One of them's pinging and the other one's giving us this weird error that the local message is too long. We're going bigger than our maximum transmission unit. Well, hold on. If you've never seen a maximum transmission unit before, you don't even know what that is, right? Well, the maximum transmission unit should be in here, right? We should be able to find that there is a MTU, or the maximum transmission unit size, of an 802.11 frame is either 1,500 or 2048 bytes. Now, nowadays, it tends to be set to 1,500, but you can do what are called jumbo or super frames, and you can set them bigger within links and stuff that you control. But that's important to know, because if you're doing back-end storage, like SAN storage, you want those to be as big as possible across the whole of the link, right? So I show you guys that to say, like, as you get into this and as you start to kind of dig in on these things, you'll see how you can use these things, right? I'm holding Control-C, trying to get the break off. If I can't get the break off, I can do this. Oops. Where's that loop at? We can also go kill the other shell, or we can let it run. Yeah, we can. There we go. We put in the background with Control Z too. All right, so the point in me showing you guys this is that we can look at stuff, we can see things happen, we can get errors, and we can kind of track things in our system if we wanted to do that, right? So these are things that you have to spend time with and learn about, or go do labs and those kind of things. I have some labs on some of this stuff that show you some of this. I probably should put together some other labs to show you guys some of the performance tuning, because with iPerf we weren't really focusing on it, but iPerf can tell us how fast the connection between two systems actually is. It can give us the fastest TCP, the fastest UDP, are there connection timeouts. There's all kinds of things that we can use iPerf 3 to test between two systems. So it's kind of a nice little tool for us to just kind of have spinning, you know, on a box. In this case, this one is still sitting back there listening, and then I can scroll up and I can go look at, this is the llama one that was catching, and we can say, okay, yeah, that's interesting. We captured this traffic. This was the amount of speed and the bit rate we were getting, and we were just using the local connection. We didn't give any specific things. We can force it to be TCP. We can force it to be UDP, because if you're testing a connection between two servers, and I'm sitting here talking about TCP connections, but the problem that we're having and the thing that we can't troubleshoot is UDP, right? We're not gonna figure some of this. We're not gonna be able to figure out what's going on. Canby, have I ever configured a server as a honeypot? Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah, but you could even, I guess, rightly say that my home lab is its own little honeypot. Ranger's doing well. People asked about Ranger. Hold on, Ranger's right here. Ranger is on this bed. He's got the door open because it's real nice outside in Phoenix. Wife's got her book club over, so you might see them wandering around every now and then. But yeah, Ranger's doing good. So the original thing that we were looking at over here was, you know, our job skills for getting into Linux, and we went and we pulled out a bunch of things that people were asking for from a bunch of different Linux jobs, right? We just looked for a bunch of different Linux jobs, and the first one that I had found, the first one I threw in there, was you need to know some networking. And I was saying, in my mind, the thing you need to know about networking is mostly summed up in here, and then some of the labs out in Killer Coda. So let's say, and I'll have to write some more labs because I need to write more labs. All right. This next one was about like configuring servers, storage, and applications, right? So this is kind of a big one. I would say almost breaking these out into their own different pieces. That might be kind of good. But on the server side, you know, what is server maintenance, right? And I would say, you know, usage. We always use this thing. I always show you guys this. It's I don't know why that just did that. USE, right? And the use methodology of usage is utilization, saturation, and errors, right? So back in my home lab, I can see right here the utilization of number of users on my servers. That arbitrarily is set at 30. This is server uptime in days, not really germane to this, but utilization is always a number between 0 and 100%. So all server CPU between 0 and 100%. I am not quite maxing out the CPU of any of my boxes. If I go to one of these days in the morning, we're getting pretty close. We're not quite maxing out the CPU, but this is scanning, right, and with our antivirus. And we'll go back. We're going to switch this back to, nope, hold on. I want to go back to the full 7 days. So we normally have this one on. Our root usage on a server's kind of high on InfluxDB, 83%, but not quite crashing out, right? But that's the utilization of the system. How much network storage, we're good. How much memory, we're not really getting too high on memory, although P01 Jumbo 1 is spiking a little bit. But memory is pretty good. So like if somebody were to come along and say, hey, how's the capacity of these systems over the last month? Do we need to spend more money on these systems? I would say no. The systems throughout the day tend to be pretty low utilization. And you might say, well, there's that spike every morning. And I'd say that spike is when we're running our antivirus. So we know what's going on with the systems. We know it's going to be a little bit higher load. We know the cost of if that were to go longer. You know, if that were to peak out, if this were to peak out, it would go just a little past 8 a.m. But most of the servers are done by about 5:30 in the morning, so before the workday starts. And then our one major storage server, he's going out till about 8 a.m. He may need to be a little more beefed up. He might need a little more horsepower so that he can get through all of his scanning. But for the most part, most of our servers are finishing back here between the 3:15 time when they kick off. See, here's that's 3:38, 3:26. Yeah, so they're starting at 3:14 a.m. when etccron.daily kicks off, 3:14. And they're all finishing at about 5:15 with the exception of the one server, right? So that's a little narrative that we could kind of build around kind of how our system is working. The interpretation of that's going to be based on how much you look at it. I happen to look at this probably more than most of you guys. So, you know, I kind of know what this stuff looks like, right? But utilization is always between 0 and 100%. Saturation is when we hit 100% and a line, or as some people outside of the US like to call them, QUEs, right? A queue forms. So once a queue starts to form, we get to timeouts and start to throw errors, right? So errors, we start to get timeouts because the saturation is too high and the line is not going fast enough for the programs to wait or to get an API call back or whatever it is, and we start to get errors within a system. So that utilization, saturation, and errors method, I love showing that to people. I think that's one of the best ways to look at Linux sysadmin, right? If we go over here in our Linux sysadmin part of this, right? And I know that's a little bright, but bear with me here. Get rid of that. It's a little bright too. If we go right here, this is how you look at it right here. Utilization, saturation, and errors within the system, right? So utilization is your resource busy time, queue length, and queued time, and then errors reported in logs, right? They should be coming out. They should be popping up. So server maintenance is usage. Errors show up in logs, right? We gotta be used to looking at logs in systems. So I'm often showing you guys. Let's get out of there. Exit. Get out of there. And in here, tail-f on var log werewolf dot d.log. So there's a daemon running for werewolf in my clusters, right? And what it does is it keeps track of everything that's going on in the system. The way that kind of works is werewolf is, so for lack of a better term, werewolf is kind of like a nanny in an environment. He's got to have his own network. So in our home lab, it's 192.168.200.0. And in that network, he is the DHCP. There can only be one DHCP in a network, right? Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So when a node comes up and they don't know who they are, they go to him. And this node then feeds out TFTP for these different systems that can come up and boot. They don't know who they are, so they get a DHCP address. They iPXE and kick off and grab over TFTP their init ramfs and their kernel, and they boot up and they start as nodes, right? That's what all these different nodes over here are doing. Rocky 1 through 19 and Hammer 1 through 25. That's how they all boot, right? It also does NFS, so then when you're in one of those boxes, you have NFS. So this guy, oops, Hammer 1, he has these NFS shares coming out, but they're actually being shared out of the Werewolf cluster, right? So Werewolf down here has a log, and the log is telling us what's going on with, like Hammer 5 just checked in to get his runtime update. And up here, that was Hammer 5. Right here, he did a request. Yeah. So here's the request, and then here's the fulfillment of everything for Hammer 5, right? He's asking for, hey, give me my new runtime. Has the runtime changed in our environment? There's two types of overlays that Werewolf provides. It's a system overlay when the startup of a box happens, like startup of a server, and there's runtime overlays that'll happen in real time, updating things out to the different nodes, right? So in this environment, we can watch that happen, right? Well, let's just say that I go kick one of these boxes. Let's just kick Hammer 1 over, just for fun. And we're going to do it at the hardware level. So we're going to come in here, go find Hammer 1, and we're just going to go ahead and say, reboot, buddy. Let's reboot him. So the connection's closed. Ping Hammer 1. Hammer 1 is down. Right? And down here, we're going to watch. Over here, we're going to see him boot at the console. He's going to come up. He's not going to know who he is. He's going to do DHCP. He's going to figure out who he is based on Werewolf kind of being like a nanny and telling him about himself. And he's going to pull all the information. Watch. He's going to identify himself here. He's booting off the internet, or off the network. Right, the local network right here. Over here, you're going to see that he's requesting stuff. That was Hammer 11 again, so don't worry. You'll get Hammer 5 here. So here's Hammer 1. There, he's pulling his information. It shows over here that he's pulling his information. Now he's going to pull his so his kernel and his init RAM FS, and now he's going to boot over here, up here, and then over here we'll see him begin to do his normal. Pulling of his runtime, right? He's going to get a system overlay here in a minute, and you'll see him boot into a system overlay and then start. But you will watch all that stuff happen. Look, and then here's Hammer 12 interrupting and doing his thing, and then back at Hammer 1, grabbing his init RAM FS right there, right? So everything's logged in the cluster, which is kind of nice. I can tell when nodes reboot. I can tell if anything else changes in the cluster. It's kind of a nice little tool to kind of nanny everything in your environment, right? So the ping up there will start here in a little bit. That box probably has another few seconds before he starts up all the way, but drink some water while we're waiting. So we'll watch him boot up. Some of you guys were here on, I want to say it was Friday night. Was it Friday night when I built out all the Hammer 1 servers? I had all the Rocky boxes for our last run of the admin course, but now I've got all the Hammer boxes. And the Hammer boxes are going to be for people doing the... so we do a Linux sysadmin course, and we're starting that up again in March. So in about 1 month, we're going to start that. But I'm also going to start a Linux systems engineering with a security focus. So that's going to be... Those are all free up in the Discord. You guys can just hop on and start doing them with us. How common is it to see SE Linux used for hardening? Can be like 10, 15 years ago, it was 0. I was always turning it off on government systems. Now, any system that I turn on and has to touch like a DREN, like an actual government network, when that happens, I always have to have SE Linux on. So that's SELINUX. Sometimes my closed captioning isn't just paying attention, but we're going to watch this box boot. We're going to watch it start pinging, and then we'll be able to get into it again, just like we could a little while ago with Hammer 1. So, yeah, SE Linux is more common nowadays than it was for sure. There's a lot more integrations and capability to get stuff working than there was even 10 years ago. So I think it's better than it was too. At least that's been my experience with it. So, all right. This is the start of the what we call the system overlay, which is the initial buildup. I know it's hard to see because it's kind of small, but it's starting all its system overlay run. It's setting up its system auth and its password. It's turning on SE Linux because I do run SE Linux in the home lab environment. Then here in a second, you're going to see it drop to its login shell. And then over here, you're going to see it start to ping. Yeah, it can be. The goal of this is to get you guys down in our Discord and show you guys that we have, a lot of good info for getting people into doing this stuff professionally. That's the goal of this, is show you guys how to do professional level stuff. And also, I missed some things, but hopefully this stuff's useful to you guys, right? This is what we do around here. This is taking a little longer than I expect, but it should pop up here in a second. And then we should be able to get everything up here. It's coming. Don't worry, it's coming. It's starting up. Taking its time. Alright, there it is. Booting. Coming up. Now we see the ping starting to respond as he's getting in. We get a few warnings, and that's not a big deal. And then we see that he actually does grab his first. I didn't know that. He grabs his first runtime right as he first comes up. So that's kind of good. That's as he's starting that service. So now over here, oops, I want to keep watching that. Now I'll come up here, Control C, and we should be able to SSH back into Hammer 1. Uptime, who am I? He's been up 4 minutes according to the kernel, but he's still booting over here. We can see the dev environment, so things are running. System, CTL status, WW client. The WW client is the thing that's going in on all these boxes and checking in for the runtime provisioning. And the nice thing is that is every 10 minutes in the cluster, but it's not a synced every 10 minutes in the cluster. It's each node checks in as they hit their own 10 minutes within the client. You might say, well, why is that important? Well, that's because over the course of 10 minutes, 40 something nodes, what do we have now? 44 nodes. Those nodes are just checking in, every few seconds you see them. They're not all hitting the system at once and pulling at once. So that's a lot less load on the main server. But you see over here, there it is, it's up. We see it's running and we're up inside of the server over here. And then it's this first one in the range over here of our original system range. All right. So errors, where would we find it? Well, anyways, over here, I want to show you guys. If there were things going wrong in the cluster, I would see it over here. Hey, Robodom, how's it going? We're doing good here. We're just kind of hanging out and working on lab stuff. I got all these extra hammer nodes out there now, so you guys can get in there. Also, that music is it's supposed to be chill piano, and that sounds very, like, creepy violin. So let's go to, we'll go down to spooky. We'll find spooky music. There we go, spooky music. I don't know if you guys can hear that too much. I have it kind of low, but I do have it set where you guys should be able to hear it. All right. System performance monitoring. This is a lot of the same stuff as above. Oh, by the way, there's storage, right? So, disk storage local, and then disk storage remote, right? So your local disk storage, how full. That's going to be stuff like df-h, how utilized, and you may want to, node exporter over to like Prometheus. It's how most of us do this out in the industry now, right? Like we're utilizing things and looking at the stuff, but we're doing it up in a dashboard. We're not going to every single individual node and looking at stuff. I mean, could you imagine that across thousands of systems, just checking everything out all the time? It would be a nightmare. And I tell people all the time, like, even if I wrote a script that did this, came to each box, so maybe I exit out of here and then I say, like, um, for server in hammer, or for server in, and then I say SEQ 1 to like 25. So these are all our sequences here, and then I add sh to hammer $server, and I do like a df-h on root, and then I say done, right? Oh, and also as I go in there, I do, we need to do on there. And then we say echo I am checking hammer $server. Let's close that up. Yeah, do echo. I am checking that. Done. Right, and I hit that real quick, and it just blows through them all real quick. Let's suppose that I could actually do that, and then I gave that script to somebody, but they don't know any Linux. I mean, they you might as well not even do that for them, right? Like, this isn't how users and non-Linux people will consume material or data out of the system ever. You would have a better chance pulling that out with a tool like Ansible and then feeding it to them. And like, I have a lab on this that I think is funny, and I don't know if people all, I think some people caught my humor, but in Killer Coda, I have a lab where I talk about this, where management wants to be fed a certain way. Management wants to, we get down here near the end, and it's like Ansible to generate a CSV report. And you say, CSV, why do I need a CSV file? Because you're probably getting information for somebody else. You're probably pulling it to feed to some other team or some other person that's asking you. And maybe you get tired of doing that, so you generate, you build a little Ansible block like this. I actually did this so it was automated, right? And you can come in here, and it says right here, management has requested that you provide system information for all the systems in your HPC cluster and give it to them in a format that they can digest via Excel. They want to be able to do all that Excel stuff and just, they don't want to, you could just give them, some raw report, but they're like, well, give it to me in CSV so I can turn it into a little Excel and do some pivot tables with it. And you're like, all right, whatever. So you've decided to build a little playbook that can come out in CSV format. So then we go in and we look at what the different, this isn't done yet. When it gets all installed, you can go and look at the playbooks that I put together. A lot of these labs walk you through everything, so all you gotta do is hit the button, and it'll actually do everything for you. I hope that got all set up. Oh, we didn't get it in there. All right. Probably didn't get to that part. So we'll just install Tree real quick so that you can do it. Tree is a pretty useful tool when you're first learning Linux, because it helps you to visualize things that later on I think you're going to have to learn and get better. All right, so ls tree, and now we see what happened when we did that Ansible Galaxy init of data gather. It put together all of this stuff, right? And then I can go ahead and copy in the answers file to here. And then if we look, oh, wait a minute. Here's our data gather, and it shows what our data gather playbook's gonna do, and then it's gonna walk through. Okay, so we come down here, and then you can go look at each of the different pieces. You guys can play with that lab if you want, but the reason I pulled that up was to show you guys that you're probably going to be giving this stuff to, other managers, other people. So how full is still the df-h. That's kind of cool. But then you're probably going to connected, right? Like, is the system connected? And like, is it NFS? Is it, I guess there's all kinds of them. Lustre. The ones I use mostly are Lustre, Weka, GPFS. These are like high performance compute ones. And what's one that I've been using? Those are my main ones that I use right there. So you say, well, how would you check? And this was a lab that we did the other day. This is up in the notes section of the Discord as well. But we were looking through one of the labs. We were going through a bunch of labs, And I said, what does an admin need to know about a service, right? What do we need to know about like NFS? Is it installed? Is it running? Where is it configured? Where are the logs or errors? Is there a monitoring solution to verify it? So what I would tell you is you need to know these things about this. So we're at the end of job skills examples here, but NFS, is it installed, right? If I don't have NFS on there, I'm not going to be able to check it. If I come to a server, though, and I say, Hammer 1, poor Hammer 1, we've really been beating him up, df-h, and you say, well, is that all the stuff that should be there? And I say, well, I think it is. There's a few things I could do here. I could go like this and say, well, I got an error, I got somebody saying that Hammer 1 is busted, but Hammer 2 looks exactly the same. So maybe I say that they're good because I'm comparing two like things. But maybe Hammer 1 had something extra, and the way I would know that is maybe if I did like a cat here. If I did a cat on etcfs tab, I might see that here's the NFS mounts that I expect, and maybe there's an extra one in here, and I don't see it now. So then I would have to go track down, well, why am I not seeing that, right? Am I getting errors? Maybe I grep NFS from etc, varlog anything, and I just see, are there errors happening, or is my system actually going ahead and getting the stuff that it needs to be able to read and whatever, right? And here it's NFS, I think that's read ahead. Over here for opt. So the /opt directory is one of the ones that's read write, right? All the other ones are read only. So I think two of them are read only. And opt is read write, so I can write into that directory, so I need additional permissions, right? And I can do a bunch of stuff to figure out like how things are, and maybe I come down here and I make sure right, like, are they mounted the same? Is everything happening the same way between these different systems, right? Okay, so anyways, there's this. These are things that I think are kind of important to know as you're looking into these different things. There's system performance monitoring, and I would tell you this is another one of those where you don't want to be in the business of just checking servers. We don't really want to be in the business of just checking servers. We want to be gathering telemetry data all the time, right? We want to be always gathering data with tools like Node Exporter or Telegraph or whatever, sending this information off so that we can get this, get the information that we need out where we can get access to it. Also, again, we're not always the ones that are looking at the data, so we need to have it out there. Okay, so then they talked about scripting, right? They want you to know some scripting. I think there's good labs, killer coda around this stuff. I think there's any number of humble bundles around this. But what I've found a lot of times with any of this stuff is you won't just learn by doing a bunch of random things. You will probably do better to learn by doing some project or deployment, right? Like in my mind, I tell people all the time, like, oh, I'm learning Python or whatever. Yeah, I've been learning Python for like 9 or 10 years. I'm probably never gonna know Python. I mean, I can do stuff and I can troubleshoot stuff and I can write little scripts in it and stuff, but I'm not some developer in it. And part of the reason of that is because I never sit down and do projects in it. But if you start to do projects and stuff, like that's one of the reasons I would say my Bash is pretty solid, as is my Ansible, because I do that stuff all the time. I sit down and I build things in it, right? So all that to say, like, you've got to pick a few that you're going to do, and you're going to have to get in there and start working with them, right? I would tell you guys, as far as the programming part of this goes, that's your mileage may vary, right? YMMV. System admins don't tend to go this deep unless they want to go be DevOps or SREs, right? If you want to be a DevOps or an SRE guy, we have those guys in the professional Linux users group, but you'd have to go talk to them about how much they do it. And I know some of them spend more time coding than others, but again, that's going to be a really wide, depending on which organization you're with. I personally know some SREs over at Apple. I know a few over, in like the FANG ones. I know some at AWS. So doing Amazon stuff. And then, I mean, this is going to be up to you how much, like if I went to an interview, right? Well, first off, I tell you guys, I haven't looked for a job without somebody coming to me for like the last 10 years. Like, it's always been like people that know me in the industry. But if I were to sit in like an interview and somebody were to ask me like some type of algorithmic question, I'd be like, we don't do that here. That's not what I do. So you obviously, by the way, I would have already made sure that wasn't part of it, because that's a waste of your time, right? That's not, like, why are we talking about two different things? I mean, as such, could I focus on like data science? Could I focus on software engineering? Maybe, but that's not what I do as an engineer, right? Like, I build stable systems. So at least that's been my focus, right? I mean, if I got to go change careers, I got to change careers. But my point is, like, this is your mileage may vary. This is how much do you want to move away from platform and systems engineering stuff? Because again, we started this out looking at Linux. The search we did was Linux administrator, and the jobs that we found were probably almost 50% software engineers directly in the title. So, like, I mean, like, how much do you want to do that? How much do you have to do that? I don't know. Some people like to do that more than others, right? Some of you guys want to go that route. All right, Git. You do have to know the basics of Git. Now, I think there's good places to learn Git, but I think you do need to know the basics of Git. And I mean, I had to learn them. I didn't want to. I didn't mind it, but there's some good stuff right here on the homepage right here. Powell, he's got, I want to say, like 17 labs. Yeah, he's got like 16 or 17 labs on Git fundamentals and how to pull stuff in. Enzo Bear, I have been asked. I was at I had went through multiple rounds. This was back in 2013. I didn't even know what an algorithm interview was. I had never even heard of that until probably in like 2020 when like Midnight Simon mentioned it. And well, I guess one of my buddies had mentioned like, hey, you can go do these like tests and try to get on some of these companies like earlier on. But that's not really exactly what I'm doing. But my buddy, I was in an interview. There's a company out here in Phoenix called LifeLock, and they had like this kind of core team of like 4 or 5 guys, and they had lost one of their Linux engineers, so they were bringing in another Linux engineer. And I was at the time I was a little probably close to about 10 years in Linux. And I went and I got through all their, multiple interviews. They really liked me. And they brought me up. And my understanding was it was me and one other guy that were going for this. And I remember I was like up in their big like boardroom. We had like this table that had like, 30 chairs around it. And I remember the guy asked me a question that in years, much years later, it was an algorithm question. And I was like, I told him, I was like, I don't really know how to. And he's like, well, I just want to see how you think through it. And I'm like, oh, I mean, I know the answer now. Like, if you guys want to hear the answer, if you want to hear the riddle, the fucking gotcha stuff like that, that doesn't make any sense to me. But if you want to hear the riddle they asked me, and then if you want to hear the solution, it's like it's not. I don't know. It's not. I mean, you'll immediately go, that's what they wanted you to know. Like, what were you doing? Like big like sorting of data, and I'm like, it was a Linux engineer position, and I know the guy. Actually, I found out later. I met the guy who got it, and he left there after like 6 months, and I'm like, should have just kept me. I'm pretty stable. But anyways, you guys want to hear this stupid riddle? Some of you guys are gonna know this. You can go Google it if you want. You have there's like 100 ways to tell this riddle, but I'm just gonna tell you the way I remember it. You have 9 people on an island, and they all weigh exactly the same, but one person weighs slightly less or slightly more than the others. You have 2 uses of a seesaw, like those little things that you could weigh. How would you figure out which one was heavier or lighter with only 2 filters of that seesaw? And I'm like, I remember thinking about this at the time. I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'd put some people on. And I didn't even, I'm like, So, anyways, some of you guys know the answer to this one already, right? If you try to do all the people, you're not going to get to the right answer. You actually have to group them first, right, into 3s, and then you have to weigh 2 groups, and then that'll tell you if they're the exact same, then you can filter down in on them, and if and then the one that's out is the one that you'd mess with. It's like I just sat there and go, and now years later, as I know like these algorithm questions and stuff, and I'm like, okay, I understand what you guys wanted, but that's not systems engineer. That's not what like systems engineers do. That is like a bunch of guys that just want to like, I don't know, I guess sit around and play around with that. Like, I mean, if you're writing that kind of code, that's a good thing. But I was never going to, for that organization, do that. I was going to harden their servers and build good servers for them. That's was going to be my job, and admin them, right? That kind of stuff. But anyways, I didn't get it. It was this other guy. I made it all the way up. There was like 6 rounds of interviews, and I remember sitting up there with like their head guys that did all their tech. And I remember just thinking it was kind of like a gotcha. They said there was one other weird thing that I think is also a red flag. Maybe this is why the other guy left. I don't know. But in the interview, they had me sit down. They gave me a laptop and they told me to troubleshoot some things around Apache. And I remember I couldn't figure out, because Apache by default sends things to error even when you're running commands to see Apache output. So I didn't know that at the time. I know that now, but I didn't know that at the time. It was something I hadn't done a lot of. So I pulled up the man pages for this command I was trying to run, and they go, "Oh, nobody's ever pulled up man pages in front of us before." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm a Linux guy. I pull up man pages 30, 40 times a day on stuff I do all the time. I pull up man pages all the time." So anyways, it was kind of interesting. People would still probably ask about the tower. Is that what it is? Like that's the one where you do the sorting, right? The Tower of Hanoi. Yeah, it's yeah, sure. I mean, like, pull out the little blocks for kindergartners, and I'll do the Tower of Hanoi. I can figure it out, right? But my point is, it's like my buddy Jared says. I have a buddy who does data analytics for companies, and he tells people not in interviews, but he tells people when they ask him to do stuff, he's like, I could do that, but that's not really where my skills are best used, and that's kind of how I feel. Like, you brought me in for like a heavy Linux engineering role, and then you started asking me stuff over here like niche software optimization stuff, because that's what that is, right? So anyways, I don't know, like ask me how to keep somebody from punching holes in our servers, and like that's the kind of stuff that I'll talk about. But all right, anyways, Kubernetes, man, I think Kubernetes is the same thing, man. Like, have to know the basics of it, right? And I would tell you the same thing. Get on Killer Coda, and they've got a tremendous amount of sandboxes and CKA stuff, right? So come down here. Oh, we're still back here. Go back one more. Killer Coda. And you could just go to like a CKA certification. I think that this is a great one. But, Kubernetes. Get in on a Kubernetes environment. You've got the whole scenario to play with. Let's just go on the playground. Let's see how this playground's set up here. Do you guys want that? If you guys haven't been in Killer Code, it's pretty easy to get around. But okay, so kubectl get nodes, right? I can see all the nodes. I've got 2 nodes in this cluster. They are on the same version. They've been up for approximately 6 and some change days. One is the control plane. The other one has no roles. I can do kubectl get nodes, show labels to see the labels involved. And I could see if there's any specialized labels around these that might make me maybe, think that there's some interesting stuff going on here. We can use these labels to ensure that things are have an affinity for and go to the different nodes. These are the pods that we would be building. And then so I could say, like in Kubernetes, know your show commands, right? Can you show everything? Can you get everything? kubectl get namespaces, right? I want to see all the namespaces. You don't need the -a for that really, but can I get all the pods in all the namespaces? And yes, okay. So I see that there's all these ones. Everything's running in kubesystem. Nothing's running in default. That makes sense, because if I did kubectl get pods, there wouldn't be anything running in default. But then could I go figure out, like, okay, there's this kubesystem namespace. So kubectl get services in the namespace kubesystem. And okay, so here's this kubedns, and it's on a cluster IP. It does port 53 for UDP and TCP. And where does that backend? Well, that should, if I describe that service, right, should have these endpoints. Here's the endpoints. Now these endpoints should map to, if I do get pods -a, actually, I'm going to filter this down a little bit. I'm going to get pods for everyone, and I'm going to grep -i for core, just because I know it's core DNS. And then when I get my pods, I'm going to say -o wide. And now I'm going to see that my core DNS, my 2 pods for core DNS, are 192.168, 1.3, and 1.2. Do you guys see those? So they're the 1.2 and 1.3. Oh, look at that. They're the endpoints right there. And it's like, do I know how to map all these things together and like troubleshoot if something were wrong in this cluster? If something wasn't working right, if the API wasn't working, if kubelet wasn't running, right? So kubectl get nodes tells me that both nodes are ready. But what if one of the nodes wasn't ready? I actually have a troubleshooting scenario in here that I turn off the kubelet on the other node. Well, if that kubelet stopped, systemctl stop kubelet, and I come over here and I get the nodes, right? And I see who's ready. Maybe it didn't stop all the way. Maybe something's starting it again. All right, let's go back over there. Kubelet's dead. Okay. Hold on. I have a feeling there's some timeout on that, because that should not be ready right now. He should not be able to. See him go not ready right there? He's not ready. So why is he not ready? Well, some jerk just turned off kubelet on him. Well, what does that mean? Well, if kubelet's off, that means that the scheduler node, scheduler pods, CTL, says that it means that the controller manager can no longer talk to it. Neither can the scheduler. Those two pods that are running as what we call static pods on this box. You can also tell because the name is over here. The name is always appended to the end of the node's static pods. So here's the static pod. So if I want to know the static pods, they are this Cube API server, this manager here, and this scheduler. If I wanted to go see where they were, because maybe they're running or they're not running, etc cube NFS. So there's the 4 that are running right there, right? Hey, it's All Cost Money. How's it going? We're just hanging out, working on job skills, and we went and grabbed a bunch of jobs and just kind of looked at, what they're asking people to know. And somebody was asking for Kubernetes, so we're down here looking at Kubernetes a little bit. I don't think that should be behind my head. Yeah. And then you know your show commands, know how to deploy pods, know how to scale pods, deployments maybe, right? And then know what these different components are and build. There's just a bunch of stuff here where I want you guys to, David Rice said a lot of jobs have want proven experience with Kubernetes. How do you get that if you never professionally worked with it? Well, I would tell you, maybe build some stuff out, maybe show that you've, I tell people the next best thing to like actual job skills is to have some kind of portfolio that shows that you understand a thing. So I don't know if that's going to include like stuff on your GitHub, something that somebody can tangibly go to and see that you understand how to like build and deploy things. You can obviously put it on your resume. You can get a CKA, which is it costs a little bit. I know that. But you could also go through and complete all the Killer Coda labs and show that would show at least that you've done the work to go through things. Run amucker. Yeah, all those things, stateful sets, replica sets, all that stuff for sure. Yeah, so I have stuff on Kubernetes. There's just so much good stuff up here that I haven't focused on it. If you go to like my Hetanis stuff, we have Kubernetes labs in here that troubleshoot and show you how to run through things and that kind of stuff. I must have added one of these. Yeah, here's our blue, green, and our canary. When you go in here, it starts you off with whatever you're going to do, and it shows you, if you're doing a blue-green deployment, what does that look like? I actually did some drawings in Excalidraw when we first put these together. Just open that in a new tab, and then scroll in and say, okay, this is what we're doing. If we're deploying between two systems, we got all the service pointed to the first deployment. We've got a second deployment, and when we're ready, we cut it over when we've done whatever testing we want to do. And if you were to take something like this, if you did that lab, let's say, and then you were to put this up in, like an example page on a GitHub, and then somebody said, oh yeah, I saw that you had some deployment stuff up there, and you're like, oh yeah, let's talk about how deployments work. We've got the active deployment. We go and build our new deployment and test with our new Nginx version or whatever we're doing, and then when we're ready and we've done our regression testing and our acceptance testing on this stuff, we cut it over immediately with a blue-green. Now, blue-green is not the way we would probably do it in production. That would be more like a canary or one box, but this is a great way to do it down in dev environments when we just want to quickly cut things over to the new system, right? Also deploying some of the labs. There was a really good project. One of you guys showed me this before, and I apologize. I'm probably not going to remember exactly where it is, but it was called like AWS Build a Resume. It was called like Resume. I can't remember what it is, but one of you guys probably knows. But it was like you could build everything you needed to inside of AWS, and there was a whole project that basically, as you built your resume, you proved that you could do all these things, and it was all part of like building your resume. I do not remember what it's called though. One of you guys might know. Yeah, stacking racks at a data center. By the way, guys, I think some of you know I'm going back over to NOAA, which is the National Oceanographic Atmospheric Agency, and I work in their data center when I do. So they've got a data center here in Phoenix that's about 4 miles from my house. So I go directly in there when I need to rack and stack things. And it is funny that you say a data center requires a bachelor's degree, because most of my work in a data center was actually after I had a master's degree. So I did a lot of data center work at Lockheed Martin, because I was technically, we were all technically hardware engineers over there. All the guys in my department for what I did, even though I was focused on Linux and a tool called Lustre for storage, we were all called hardware engineers. We were all leveled out as hardware engineers all the way up and down, which is kind of funny that you say that because yeah, I've spent, I mean, since getting my first master's degree, which was 17 years ago. Yeah, 17 years ago. I have worked in a data center 15 of those years since then. Yeah, so like actually almost 16 of those years. So like I've been in a data center the whole time. So it's not like not like you get away with that. Yeah, yeah. And then it's actually funny to get the to move up because I was a hardware engineer when I joined at Lockheed Martin. To become a hardware engineer senior, which is level 3 for them, I actually had to get a second master's degree in engineering. My first master's is in business administration, and I had to get an engineering degree to move up. New Go guys stationed on a ship, and they were in Seattle for a few weeks. Came to some training class I was in. After that, they were off to the Arctic. Nice. Yeah, shock value. I don't get to do anything cool with NOAA like that. I just keep all their servers running. So I'm an outside contractor. That being said, though, I do show you guys this often. I do love the library NOAA. This is, once it switches to that, it doesn't work. Right there. Yeah. Let me see. I think this one doesn't work. This one is good. If you guys have never seen this, let me link this to you guys. NOAA is very open with their data. They always have been. And they have really good projects. This is coming up in 2 days. For citizen science, what they call citizen science, which is any of you that want to get involved with this. So I would tell you guys, like, you know, on top of this stuff, this is like base. I want to be a Linux admin. I want to be a Linux engineer. But some of you guys just do Linux. I don't want to say for fun, but you're doing Linux as a hobbyist, like all the rest of us did. And then you're like, but I don't really want to do admin stuff all day or engineering stuff all day. And Linux, that's boring. I want to go do something like this. Nothing's stopping you guys from doing this, right? I mean, you know, you might say, oh, I need a PhD. No, you don't. You need a PhD to probably get on with NOAA. But if you just go in and start building a bunch of stuff and they're like, oh, man, this guy's doing really cool stuff with, there's very specific types of formats they use. You can go find it. It's all over their page. All the research tools stuff is all right here. All the formats you need, all the tools you need, all the libraries and whatever thing you need. It's all here, right? But anyways, there's a lot of information there for people that want to, I don't know, bolster your resume a little bit and maybe doing some projects and you're looking for some fun project stuff. Let's suppose you'd be around anytime between now and Thursday for some VLAN. Oh, and it all costs money. Was that you asking about VLANs? We were talking the other day about VLANs, and yeah. Let me see if it has it in our book. Hold on. There's Ranger. Look at Ranger. One of my wife's friends sent over that. Actually, I think that's one of my buddy's girlfriends, who is in my wife's book club. Girlfriend? No, they got married. Now that I think. I'm a terrible friend. I don't remember which of my friends got married and which ones didn't. Hold on. Let me go grab the book from earlier. Let me go see if it has it, at least to give you guys a primer, a location for a primer. I'd like to give you guys a place to start before I go just head for, because I'll dive head first into VLANs, right? No, that's not it. So this is important about 802.1q is the VLAN tag, but do they show? I want to see if they actually show. Nope, they don't have VLAN. So this is an older book, but it should still have it on there. Translational bridging, they do talk about VLANs. They're not going to show tagged frames. So, all right. Yeah, we could go over it, though. We'd for sure. You set up your first 3 VLANs at 3 a.m. this morning. That's funny. Yeah, VLANs are great. It's 802.1q tagging if you're one of the poors. If that's POORS. If you're an all Cisco shop, it's ISL, which is their proprietary VLAN tagging protocol. I know. I'm not supposed to call people the poors, but no, the if you're not in an all Cisco shop, you can't use ISL. Every device has to be Cisco for ISL to work. Yeah, let me. It all costs money. Let me put a little presentation together for you guys because it's week 7 of my college, so we go week 7 and 8, and then we start over. And I got a little bit of time, so I'll put some stuff together. But if not, I will definitely tag you in it when I build it. But yeah, the idea is actually super simple on VLANs. I probably should add it. You know what? It's funny. I probably should add it to my primer. I don't have the primer open right now, but yeah, I probably should add a whole VLAN section to our primer here soon. So we'll do that. That'll be good. All right. What's our time at? Okay, we got some time. We can talk a little bit longer. We have, by the way, guys, I've been putting chats up here for you guys that want. Some of you guys said you wanted me to just start asking you questions and having threads for us to discuss things. So I've been putting those up there around that book that I've been linking for you guys. So that book is free. It's just a IBM Red book that you can find out there in the world. And then where were we? We were down here in Kubernetes. You got to know that stuff. Virtual server management. You need to know your hypervisors. And if I could spell. Know your hypervisors and the tools to access them. You're probably going to be dealing with VMware, which is going to be an ESXi hypervisor, and you're probably going to be using vCenter to access it, typically. VLANs would be perfect coinciding with subnets as abstraction. Yeah, James, and if you haven't seen, like in my home lab, I've run, all of this is run. This is my primary network on, it's just untagged. And then VLAN 1 is my lab network. So all the lab stuff happens. And then VLAN 1 only comes off of these 2 physical machines. But the traffic does traverse the normal network because the normal network, unmanaged switches just don't touch the VLAN. They just let it go. And then for these pieces of these 2 networks to communicate with each other requires the router in between, right? Of course, kind of is always the way that works. So, and that is because I do have 2 different subnets, a .200 for our network range, and then a .11 for like my home lab type range. Oh, VLAN. So your well, hopefully your employer can't get around in your own network, but I guess that's something to play with and see. Okay, guys, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to take a quick break and say give my little hourglass here. Let's say quick break. Quick break, get some water. You guys can hang out, keep talking. We're just looking at systems. How's Ranger doing? Ranger's still just down there being Ranger. So, all right. We're not looking at any more jobs tonight. And then come over here and check on our servers. All right. Start our little break, and I will be back in about 8 minutes, guys. Take a break, walk around. I'll be back. Alright guys, here's my problem. I was gonna go downstairs, but the wife has the book club downstairs, so I have to stay up in my little bell tower upstairs, like Quasimodo. I'm not allowed to be seen. That's not true. That's not true. I can go down. I'm just gonna hang out up here. I'm just gonna hang out up here. I'm gonna just hang out. Yeah, book club. They're doing whatever they're doing. I think reading books and talking about books and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And actually, it's funny. I don't even know. Now that I think about it, I thought I heard her sister down there. My wife is in 2 different book clubs, so the book club that's down there might not even be the book club that I thought it was. So that's fun. That's fun. Who knows? Have I ever done service stress testing? Yeah. Yep. Yep. I use Burp Suite to stress test websites. That's SUITE. Sweet. Whatever. Apparently, I can't say the word sweet. Yeah. It's all sweet. You don't want to get called sweet in prison, I don't think. But, anyways, that's funny. Yeah, but I've done some stress testing of things. Done load testing. Done a lot of what we call DIDL, day in the life testing of systems. But I don't know if those are. I may be missing other questions as well, but because I'm on break. You guys are on break. I'm on break. We're just kind of hanging out, letting the security. How are they down there? Ranger's looking for food. Ranger's over there looking for food. I think that's actually my wife's sister down there. So they're down there doing ranger related things. Oh yeah. If you guys try to link anything, you got to put it in the Discord, and then Robodom tends to grab it for you guys. It's common to see KVM, Q, Emu, or libvirt. Yeah. I think KVM's pretty common. I see libvirt sometimes in the Red Hat stacks. Here's the thing, though, right? And you'll find this if you guys go into companies that are heavily Red Hat. You'll find that they the way Red Hat has been going the last few years, and the way a lot of companies are going, is they really don't want. You can do those low level things, right? But they don't want you doing that like in production systems. Just like what I was showing you guys with Kubernetes, where you're doing some basic commands. That's fine. But when we go to actually run Kubernetes, somebody shouldn't be sitting there like me doing kubectl commands except to troubleshoot boxes. I should not be like deploying services and those kind of things like this. We should be doing them through a pipeline. Things should be coming in. We should be using tools like OpenShift. If you're paying Red Hat for it, OpenShift's an expensive tool, but it's very powerful tool that just kind of encapsulates everything. And then you just give your dev teams the ability to deploy their stuff right into the dev environment, do all their tests, call it good, deploy stuff into prod. Like, you can get out of the business of doing that kind of stuff for people. So OpenNebula, I don't even know what OpenNebula is. What is this? Interesting. Sure. Oh. Oh, by the way, this is a big one. Some of you guys have been around. I had never even heard about it until about 10 seconds ago. For you guys that don't know, the problem with VMware right now, right? The problem with VMware in the industry has been coming for the last few years. They got bought by Broadcom, right? They got bought by Broadcom, and then they immediately added the licensing costs of ESXi going forward for support for people, from people I talk to, and I've read this too, but I'm personally talking about people I've talked to in the industry, 4 to 10 times as much cost. Well, for a company who's trying to save money, and they're running ESXi across maybe 100 servers, when they just got hit with your costs are going to go to at a minimum 4 times as much. You were paying, let's say, $100,000 for your licenses. Now it's between $400,000 and $1 million. That's untenable for a lot of companies. So a lot of companies are, So Proxmox has been getting pushed and deployed a lot more. I know that they're actually, it's on the Proxmox site. Like, hey, think about how you can move over to us, right? Because guys, you got to understand, organizations, enterprises, they do not just turn on a dime. They're not just going along this way on, RHEL and OpenShift and all these other things, and then one day get mad and say, okay, well, we'll just go Ubuntu. That doesn't, you could try that, but you would be probably immediately out of any type of regulatory compliance. Probably your PCI compliance would be immediately shot. It takes months to turn a ship like that. You guys have seen me. I'm gonna pull something up. This is gonna be a little bright, guys, but I'm gonna pull something up real quick here, and I'm gonna pull up something that you guys have seen me show here with my Stigs, right? My Stig viewer. A little bright, but we're gonna pull up Stigs real quick, and I want you guys to see something about these, right? Let's say that I have 10 different types of servers in my environment, let's just say, and every one of them has to adhere to these 401 Stig. I have to account for all 401 of these Stig standards. These are the Secure Technical Implementation Guidelines. And it's not that I have to turn them all on. I have to at least have accounted for them. Like come down here and it says you have to have kernel KPTR restrict equals 1, and you're either going to pass or fail. So I go, and against these 10 server templates that I build, I run my scan tools. I have like OpenSCAP Workbench and some other stuff that I can run, the SCC tool, and I can generate reports and look at them. But just think about this for a second. 401 times my 10 different server types, that's 4,000 and some change compliance things that have to be accounted for. And you say, well, that's super easy. You just do all of them the same way. Yeah, but your web servers are a little bit different. And your database servers, well, we can't do all the restrictions on them. And some of our app servers, especially in our high-performance compute space, we can't do all of the kernel restrict things for how messages pass because that slows down our high-performance compute too much. So now you go, wait a minute, so all 10 of these have to be different? I go, yeah, I'd probably be generating 10. This is one of the things that consumes a lot of my time as an engineer, is I build systems that are the same, but with little minutia differences, and then I have to go fill out these reports for them. I actually have to do it for 2 other big systems here in the next few weeks, and it's I wouldn't say it's a nightmare, but it's tedious. I have multiple of them open, and I just jump down through them, and yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work, right? So where I'm going with that is, why do I prefer using Zen? I don't know. I just, I set up XCP-NG a long time ago, which is a fork of Zen, and I've just always kind of used it. So, not that I have to stay on it. I just kind of always left it up. And it works fine for me. It works fine for what I need in the system and the the architecture that I have, my little Rocky boxes. I run a lot of Werewolf nowadays and a lot of Werewolf Rocky nodes. I think we're up to 44 now in the lab that you guys can use. And the reason that's a big deal, oh shoot, I got to talk to I got high school students to talk to on, now I think about it, I got high school students to talk to on Wednesday morning, and I might just give them all access into that cluster and give them the ability to do it. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I'm just going to call you Mundo. I think it's fine. The problems that you'll run into with it are like this, and this is one of the things I show you guys. Let's go out of here. Let's go all the way out of here. You know what? Actually, let me jump back over here. This is one of my problems I have with it right here. Is this CD2? What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, root Ansible. So these are some of my Ansible playbooks, and let me show you my deploy for Werewolf, right? So these are Werewolf. Oh, geez, CD to Werewolf. I don't know what I'm thinking of. Werewolf deploy nodes, right? And in here, we have our lab environment, which is just a mapping of the nodes that were getting built in our cluster long ago. And then I want to show you, here's our lab deployer. Deployer.yaml. And there's, as we get in here, there's only 2 Ansible modules for Zen Server anymore. One is Zen Server Guest, which is like this, where you can build guests. It is not well supported. It is definitely not well documented. This is about as basic as I can make it, and I can feed in the MAC addresses here so that the MAC addresses are always different from this file right here as I feed them in, and then also the names and the hosts. The item.node.host is right here, so the host it's going on, and then the name of the actual server here. But it is not well supported from a... I don't think anybody supports that anymore. So it's different than like Proxmox and Terraform, where like that's they've got a supported what they call over their provider. In Terraform they call it all providers, and that is a supported one and updated one. But this hasn't been updated in a long time. Canby said, "Is this stream a weekly thing?" I probably stream about 4 or 5 times a week on average. You're welcome to hang in. We also hang out on Twitch. We got about 35 people on Twitch, 25 people on YouTube. It's kind of funny. I think I have a lot more. I've gotten a lot more followers or subscribers or whatever they call them on YouTube lately because I think people like to sit down and learn stuff. Whereas like Twitch, I've been on Twitch a lot longer, and I think Twitch is mostly people just wanting to kind of hang out, and most people probably leave me to go play and watch video games and stuff, which is fine. That's what Twitch is for, right? Like. Chris Jackson said XCPNG to have a way steeper learning curve. Yeah, I could see that. Like Proxmox is designed to just plop out of the box and work. Some of my stuff in my home lab would confuse people that haven't been here. Like if I turned off all my lab right now and turned it all back on, which actually happened a few weeks ago because my breaker broke here in my home lab. You might go, well, okay, Scott, hold on. On this server that you're on, you've got this NFS ISO library, but it's unmounted on all your boxes. And I would say, aha, yes, because the NFS ISO library actually comes off of this server here. Where's he at? This hostbox server. So if you turned all these on and hostbox came up, then once his NFS comes up, these would have already tried to connect to that ISO library and they would have been busted. But once he's up, right? Then he's exporting ISOs, so now all of the ISOs that are in there, you could try to mount on any server and then boot into that ISO and install or do whatever you wanted to do with the different servers, right? So where I'm going with that is, yeah, XCPNG is just something I've run in the home lab for years now, and if I ever move off of it, I may just build just straight, like just a straight Werewolf cluster, and I would probably just do Rocky underneath everything, and then maybe do that. Maybe put some Kubernetes on it, and probably run some like KubeVirt to just deploy servers for me. But you guys are gonna find out. Like one of my things is on top of being an engineer and college professor, I'm also like exceedingly lazy. So like in my home lab, corners get cut all the time. And that's not necessarily a good thing. That's not how I do business at work, but it is how I do business at home when I'm messing around. So you definitely need to know your different tools for whatever way that they have you log into stuff. SAN, storage area networking. This opens up a whole bunch of there's new networking to know. There's new server and server things to learn. new disk things. I would tell you it's almost always, in my world, it's almost always RAID 6. New server things to learn. We call them JBODs. Just a bunch of disks. So we got a lot of servers that are JBODs. You got to learn new networking. So you're probably going to deal with FDDI, which is what fiber something data interface. You're probably going to learn about FCOE, which is fiber channel over Ethernet. You're probably going to learn about InfiniBand, depending on the different types of networking that you might background and touch, like the back end of whatever systems you're using. I can't tell you what that company's using, but those are the things that you might run into. FDDI might be the networking standard, and fiber channel over Ethernet might be the actual thing that you'd be configuring. But this is interesting because we'll VLAN and we'll carve certain ports. We'll have like 100 gig fiber link, right? And that 100 gig fiber link will be like 90%. So 90 gigs of it will be carved to a VLAN for just the storage, and 10% will be like the management of, traffic. So it's one link, it's one fiber link at 100 gigs, but fiber channel over Ethernet has it as two VLANs, right? Two different VLANs on the same system, and 10% is allocated for, network, and then the other 90% is for storage area network traffic, right? So it's interesting, the things that you'll run into in your career in that sense, for sure. New disk things. You may run into, Weka. Weka's, I had never seen, guys, the way Weka does it, I had never seen before in my career. And I've only been using it for a little bit. But look at this. I have it here. There's a white paper on Weka. Weka does it the most like Weka. I've deployed a good amount of Weka, guys, in the last few weeks, last few months in big government systems. Check this out. This is the interesting thing about Weka. Does anybody here ever work with Hadoop, which is HDFS, Hadoop file system under the hood, or what's that one? I always think Cyan, but that's not. What's that other one that Red Hat owns? I always forget its name. This one kind of does it as well, but it's called what the fuck is the name of that? It's an object storage. Yarn, Hive. I'm used to HDFS in this, but it's BYOS. BYOS, bring your own storage, or BYOD, bring your own disks. It's different than BYOD in a security sense with bring your own device, but what it is HDFS. HDFS is great. There's 5 processes to HDFS, right? We could talk about them. I did HDFS for years, but Weka is very similar in that each of the systems brings all of its disks. And then the way that it treats the disks is not, the disks are not treated in a RAID fashion. They're not back-end RAID for it. They're just all raw disks. And then what Weka does is kind of like how HDFS did it. There's 3 replicas of your data across the cluster. So a replica of your data might be on storage node 1, 3, and 17 of 25 storage nodes. And these storage nodes we're building, each of the individual SSD disks on them are 5 terabytes. Wait, hold on. 5. Yeah, they're 5 terabytes. So like we're talking in one little, what's that, about a 4U's like this. So it's probably like a 2U box. We have, a few hundred terabytes of storage. And then we've got a bunch of these, but your data is going everywhere. It's metadata. And then all of your communication in Weka is over containers. So every node stands up containers, and all those containers do is pass data all the time. They know metadata information about the cluster. They know where all of your stuff is stored. They can do read ahead on files. There's a tremendous amount of efficiencies built into it. But yeah, anyways, I linked that, I think, to you guys for people that want to go look at like what Weka's doing. It's wild. This is like a minimum config that somebody would do. We go way bigger than this. Did I say 5 terabytes? Yeah, that's a very minimum. I think we have some disks that are like 20 terabytes actually, but anyway, so the point is there's a bunch of stuff. TrueNAS on them. Yeah. Yeah, it all costs money. That's good. Make sure you have your data in more than one location so you don't lose it. That's an important concept in the systems world, even just for your home stuff. I have my stuff on a RAID 5 behind me. I do need to get it in more than one location, so because I don't keep a lot of stuff on my physical box here. So, I mean important stuff. I keep it here and then I back it up, but like my video stuff and other stuff like that, I keep just stored up in my Linux infrastructure, right? All of this stuff, my network storage. In fact, the main one is data. Right here, he's 84%, so he's mostly full right now. Also, I think I hear the wife come. They might be done downstairs. Let's go check. All right. Well, we got cloud. There's a lot of cloud stuff. I tell you guys check the Discord for cloud. But security, we mentioned the different protocols that are out there. They want you to maintain these security protocols. That's almost always STIG, right? So you got to know your STIGs. There's a lot of ways to do that. There's OpenSCAP, and there's the SSC tool scanner. I have 2 labs that show you guys how to do that. Yeah, it all costs money, so much to learn. This is like, you're constantly going to be learning new stuff in your career. So I would just tell you, be open to it, and then just keep working on it, right? Like, you never, well, in my career, I've never like met an engineer that's like, I've arrived. I know all the things. You could probably like, if you didn't like want to do like technology stuff like Linux or systems, you could probably be like, oh, I'm going to do just process engineering. And process engineering, you'd probably learn most all the things, and you'd eventually be Edwards Deming, and you'd be able to tell everybody how to improve every process, and that would probably get kind of like stale over time. You could probably be an economist, and that would probably all be the same crunching of numbers over time. But like in our world of like systems engineering, this is constantly like, things are always kind of, I don't want to say changing, but there's always new stuff coming out. We do need to stay on top of it, yeah. But on the other side of it, I tell you guys, the Linux stuff, the base Linux commands hands-on, that doesn't change much. How to check out a server if it's healthy, that doesn't change much. How to troubleshoot things, those are processes that you can kind of get good with, right? Hey, JK Singh, hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Thanks for the follow. As you can see, Ranger's not super impressed. I love that little meme of Ranger. But I will be putting together more of the STIG stuff and the OpenSCAP stuff, because we have another talk. Where do I have that? I have it. I don't know where I have. That's Wazoo stuff. I have it somewhere over here. Hammer block stuff. That was us messing around. This was our security course. So I have a security course that I'm putting together, and I'm going to be doing some of these things, making you guys do build compliance, making you secure the network, making you look at the access and systems integration type stuff, and then bastion hosts and jailing users, right? Like, so all the security stuff, we're going to do, I think, at least 9. We're going to do at least 9 of those, and then we're also going to have a hammer block environment so you guys can also scan and attack systems too. So I'm going to do, this is going to be like the defense side of things, and then there's going to be an offense side as well. So you guys can play with that kind of stuff, because I think that that's valuable for people that are hanging out and learn stuff. We have a normal Linux sysadmin course for the more beginners, and that's starting up again in 1 month. So the 22nd, that's starting. If you guys haven't been to a Discord server, there's the events, and it's a Linux systems admin course. It's going to be the base course starting over again. And then the security course will be, I don't want to say I'm going to go faster, but I'm definitely going to I'm not going to go over basic concepts. We're just going to start going like, we've already done our crawling here. We're going to do our walking and our running in that course, right? Crawl, walk, run methodology, right? So, all right. Anyways, there's a lot of stuff out there for you guys to play with in the Discord and stuff. So, I This might only be 10 weeks. Let's just call this 10 weeks. There we go. That's the first 10 weeks on that side. So, all right. Oh, Robodon, we can go a lot faster. Yeah. When I'm still explaining like how to get into command line stuff and like the later weeks, then yeah, we're still going easy. Yeah, for sure. All right. But this is what we're gonna do, guys. I'm gonna have to go, and I think the wife's done with her stuff, so I'm gonna go to my little end of stream here. You guys are always welcome to kind of hang out in the Discord. That's a very good, persistent place to hang out with everybody, and we'll go find somebody to raid. It all costs money. No, you can't. Not without VLANing. Within the same network, like so within like your home network, without dropping VLANs, you have to use the same networking scheme, just for simplicity's sake. Once we drop VLANs and have different networks, then we can change and do different things in different scopes of networks and that kind of stuff for sure. But no, not just as a like a default like that. All right, let's go hit Midnight. Let's go see what Midnight's up to. And I will talk to some of you guys later on this week. I should be back on tomorrow night. Yeah, absolutely, Camby. Thanks for coming.